Can we go back for a second and just talk about what that was like the first night that after you had given the kids back and you were at home alone with Jason? Was that terribly sad? Were you happy that they were reunited? How did you feel?
No, we weren't happy. And the reason is honestly, we felt like they were going home to a house that was not prepared for them. And we knew that something was going to happen. And it was just, and it was, I wanted more than anything for those boys to just be safe. It wasn't even about, can they give them this or that, or, are they going to be able to afford to send them to college, or, the opportunities and that sort of things. It was more about like, are there light socket, covers on the electric outlets? Are they going to have enough food? Are the dad had showed some anger at times, and I was like, is that going to be directed at them? And it just, there were things like that where I was like, this is so horrifying. I remember one of the social workers came and she got the boys and we, loaded them into our car. And then, Jason looked at me like, let's just go for a walk. And like, we just walked down the street, we got ice creams, we sat on a bench, and it was just sad,
Yeah. And what are you allowed to do in terms of communication with the family after the fact? Do they tell you you can't speak? Do they let you speak? Do they let you see the kids again?
No, when they went back, we were in a good place with the parents. We had a good relationship with them, and so we were told and encouraged, like, look, stay in their lives, like let them know if they need anything, call you. Like if the dad has some anger issues and he's, about to have a fit or something, like let him know to call you and you'll come get the kids and give them some respite care. Like be their friends in that sense. And so we tried really hard to do that. For a while. We had we had gone over and brought them some food one night. We brought them over, we had we had so much clothes and toys and stuff like that we had gotten for them over the year and a half that they were with us, that obviously were theirs. So we wanted to bring them to them. And so we brought those over and we'd gone and visited a couple of times. And then there was a situation where we took them to the hospital one night because the oldest one had a bad fever. We had a car. So we drove the mom and the three kids to the hospital and went with her. And then while they were in getting him care, I took the younger son over to the grocery store. We bought them some more food and then brought them all home. We left the house that night. It was a Friday night, and the grandmother said that she was going to go down on Saturday. And so she went in and hung out and did some laundry and other things and spent the night. And then on that Sunday, the grandmother called us and she was hysterical. And I was, what's going on? And she said, I had just run down to the store, and when I came back, the mom was outside smoking a cigarette, and the daughter, who was then 10 months old, and the younger son, who was then 20 months old, were in the tub by themselves.
Oh my God.
And that was my fear. And so, what we ended up doing was I had gotten to know the guy who runs the Department of Children and Family Services here in LA. And I just through some work stuff. And so I sent him an email because it was like, I knew I couldn't go to our social worker because we had the one that I didn't think was very competent at the time. And so I emailed him and just said, look, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. I didn't see this. So, I'm reporting what someone else told me, but I'm not confident that if I said anything to the social worker, anything would change. But I knew hitting send on that email also meant that we'd be costing ourselves a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And I also knew that if I didn't do it, I would never live with myself if something happened. Mm-hmm. So ultimately we hit send, and then we heard from the mother that she never wanted to hear from us again.
Right. So now if you spool later on, they do lose their kids again, correct? Mm-hmm. As of today, what's the situation with those children?
Yeah, I know. So what happened was we waited because we knew that they were going to come back in. It was just I was like, let's just not do anything and let's give it time because they're going to come back in. And the truth is they really didn't come in contact with anyone who was mandated to report for a little over a year. And then ultimately, I'm sorry, probably even longer than that, but a little over a year after they reunified, we ended up finding out about 3 kids who were in a foster situation that weren't going home. And they said they were looking for a permanent family for them. The family that they were with just foster parents, and they couldn't adopt for whatever reason. And so
how long had those 3 been in foster at that point?
A little over a year.
Okay.
They actually went into care right about the same time the boys left our care. And so we had no kids for, maybe a year, I don't know, little over a year. And then
I'm sorry. And I just had a question about this. In that situation, what made it that the kids were then available for adoption as opposed to going home? They tell me specifically.
So they always give you a reunification plan. The parents have to meet a certain threshold and they have to do certain things in order to get there. And after, so much time, which the court will give more time if the parents are making progress, right? But because they really hadn't done anything, they terminated the services and said, let's look for a permanent placement. And so that was about after a year. And so then we found out about them and we're like, well, let's just find out the story, let's see what's going on. And then we found out the story. We of course met them and fell in love immediately. And then we started doing visits with them, and then they started doing weekend overnights, and then ultimately they moved in. And then about 10 months later, we got a call from the county that the boys and their younger sister were now in care. And would we take them as well, which would have given us 6 children.
Wow.
Which 6 children who are all wonderful, amazing kids, but each one has their own challenges, of course. And we just didn't feel like as 2 of us, we would be able to give them everything that they need. And so ultimately we made the decision not to, which was truthfully the hardest decision of my life.
Yeah. Sure. And so are they still in foster care? Did they get adopted? What's their situation?
No, they've been in and out a few times. And right now they're living with their dad. And the mom is not in the equation anymore. I don't really know what. I don't really get updates that often,
So you don't communicate with them now?
Not regularly, no.
But also that probably would have been difficult for the 3 kids that you were now committing to have another kid come into the picture.
I think so. But, we have a thing in our house. I mean, I think it's very important to be honest with one another, with everybody in life. But I think it's, especially with kids, what we find kids who've experienced trauma is that, and, like I said, being removed from your family is traumatic in and of itself, that if you don't tell them their own story, they make it up. And whatever they make up is going to be worse than the truth anyways. And so, we luckily have amazing psychiatrists that my kids work with, and my husband and I work with as well. And it's really helpful, for all of us. And I think so the same thing is like when writing this book, I don't share a tremendous amount of their backstory because I think that's their story to tell. Where the boys, I changed all their identities and anything identifiable, so you wouldn't be able to track them down. Right. So it's a little bit different there, but I'll let my kids can share their story later, if they want to.
What was that like getting the call that the adoption went through, or how did that work?
It was really funny because we had them with us. It had been, a little over a year that we were moving towards adoption. And what they really do is once you move in, it's like a pre-adoptive placement. You've got to live with them for 6 months before they'll start your adoption paperwork because they want to make sure that it's a fit, right? The worst thing would be an adoption that they'd have to cancel out, right? Yeah. And so after 6 months, they started that process. And then so little over a year, the global pandemic broke out. And so that was, in May of that year was when we were supposed to have our adoption date. But because the courts were closed and then the courts were mine, and then, they ended up just doing paperwork and sending it to us. So about a week before Christmas that year, we just got a, letter in the mail. It was like, here you go. Congratulations. So it was a little anticlimactic.
Oh, it wasn't like you see in social media where people are running in slow motion. You're now adopted.
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, it was, it's for us, it was pretty magical. I will say, the pandemic, for as awful as it was for the world and everybody living with it and those who died from it, from my family being locked in the house together for a year, knowing that we didn't have those first few years of their life with them, it was pretty beautiful. I mean, we all got to see where we fit in the family and build bonds that we otherwise wouldn't have been as deep,
Right. Did they ask a lot of questions about their parents? Was there a lot of separation anxiety? Do they miss them? Do they, what's their relationship with their birth parents?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we do have communication with them. So it's not as like, it's, it's not as regular. It's more like holidays, birthdays, stuff like that. It's not, we don't see them, but we, over phone communication and stuff. They've got some stuff that they're dealing with. So, the parents, so we sort of give them space to, and we'll be in touch when they're in touch, sort of thing.
Right. What would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned from your experiences in the last couple of years with fostering versus adoption, everything you've gone through?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to all of the basic parent things that we all learned, we all learned as parents,
Yeah.
I think that one of it is really just the ability of your heart to love. I mean, that it really is, there is no limit. I mean, when those boys left, I thought I would never be able to love another child, and then I met 3 more who just added more space in my heart that I didn't know was available. I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. And for anyone thinking about fostering, what would you suggest? Are there any things that you want to say to them?
I think it's the biggest thing is to go in with your eyes wide open, right? And it's this idea that you are for yourself, it's like understanding that like there's a strong likelihood that your kid's going to reunify. So if you're not up for that, there's other things you can do. Become a mentor, become a CASA, do other things, right? But if you have it in your heart to do this and you have the ability, then like know that you got to go in and give this kid the love and attention they need. And at times it's not going to be easy, like because parenting's not easy, but parenting a kid with trauma has definitely got some added challenges to it. But it also, I mean, the reward is just so amazing.
Right.
So it's, I encourage people to do
being able to help a kid in need when you have so much, or maybe you don't even realize how much you have, but it means so much to them. I mean, I just think it's such a beautiful, magical thing. So I hope that there are more people that want to foster. I think a lot of people haven't even thought about it. They don't even know that they could be helpful, but it seems like there are so many children in need. And so it would be something for people to definitely look into. Tell people where they can find the book and where they can look up more about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Safe, it's a memoir of fatherhood, foster care, and the risks we take for family is available wherever books are sold. My website is markdaley.us. And then if you're interested in fostering, I did set up a site called thefosterparent.com, which connects people to agencies in their own community where they can get involved.
Amazing. Mark, thank you so much. I wish you guys the best of luck and a great birthday today.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate it.